Welcome to the Hytale Roundtable. I got some of the biggest Hytale creators together to discuss the current state of the game. We've got a lot of new faces, and by a lot, I just mean Hugo. Introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Hugo. I'm from the Spanish-speaking community, and I'm here to talk about Hytale a bit.
Yeah, we kicked out the one red guy for another red guy. I thought it was only fair. We got 30 back once again.
Hello, I'm the Skyblock guy, for those of you that don't know me. Still waiting on Hytale 5 years later.
And then we got
the rest of us.
Then we got the community presence himself, Mr. Kweebec Corner.
I'm a Kweebec guy making Kweebec content on a Kweebec channel. That's me.
Man, I'm so curious if there's people from your channel that don't know anything but your scripted content, and then they see you right here, and then they're like, wait, where's the YouTube voice?
Oh, yeah. No, that's not a thing here.
Yeah, guys, I got bad news. Connor actually talks like a normal human. He's not Kweebec Gordon all the time, although maybe. Have we seen them in the... You're not doing it? Okay.
I mean, he's not doing it.
Oh. Anyway, we got 2 new blog posts. We got some information from Thankmas, the live stream, as well as some John comments that we have to go over. And we're going to put our predictions for Hytale in 2025, maybe even 2026, 2027. That we've got a lot to go over. I hope no one, Radoons, is here to say Hytale 2027, but we'll get to that. I think the first thing we want to go over is the brand new blog post. Well, it's not brand new anymore. Regardless, we got a lot of information, and I think the first thing we got to talk about is they filled in the blonks. We heard about blonks the first time in the summer blog post, and it was a new term introduced, and it's basically all of their little tasks. And then they fill in each task or each blonk, and slowly, once you get enough blonks, you have Hytale. That's how I kind of understand it. And they have achieved a lot of internal milestones for blonks. One of the big ones is that they concluded an internal playtest that exceeded expectations. Players jumped into new custom worlds and built together, explored the capital, queued for simple minigames, and experienced a basic version of the adventure loop. Now, that leads me into my first question. What do you guys think is the adventure loop? Because that's put in quotations, so it's not the full adventure mode.
I feel like that's just the gameplay loop, right? Like of whatever.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing.
So
Survival,
people are jumping in, but they're not doing the story. Are they just playing the sandbox mode? Is that how I can understand that? Resource gathering, crafting, and exploration in a procedurally generated open world. Do you think the story is in the new engine? Where do we think they are yet?
I think the story is everything.
That's probably
all of
going to be one of
Hytale.
the...
It's too soon to talk about the story, I think.
Yeah, I'm not so sure if they've done that yet. I feel like that would be the last thing for them to put in, because you would need every other thing to already be done to have the story.
Exactly.
I think I'm gonna save the story for a later discussion, because I think that's something that has not been talked about, and they refuse to talk about it. But I'm curious where everyone thinks the story is going to go, and even how much of a story will happen. 30, I'm curious, as a developer yourself, how do these internal milestones make you feel about the readiness of Hytale? I mean, they talked about a lot.
Yeah, I mean, the number one example when looking at the engine is definitely that, at least in the older blog posts that pan out from the cave, a lot of people were disappointed because it looked pretty rough. Even though the developers in the audience were aware that the environment was a lot more robust in how you can interact with it. I mean, the simple fact that the game's running on multiple platforms too. Like, all the new improvements in the new engine are now finally something we can see with that new clip that we saw walking through the new version of the house.
Mm-hmm.
Not only can you see that new engine, which is much more in-depth and again is more customizable, but now you can see it with proper lighting. You can see it with a proper walk cycle, even if it is a bit goofy with walking downstairs. Um, but it's really reassuring to see. But it's something I've known for a while. I feel like most developers knew this for a while, but at least now we can, for everyone else, show the new engine working and looking nice, not just functioning well.
Yeah, and I mean, they hit 100 concurrent players in a single lobby. Can both either you or Hugo talk about what does this mean? I mean, as a normal player, sure, we have 100 player lobbies in Fortnite. We have does Minecraft? Yeah, Mega Walls has 100 player lobbies. What does the significance of that even mean?
I mean, the size of games is limited by how many players can be of one instance at a time. Like games like Skyblock get away with sharding, or like making different shards where players can that are concurrently playing, let's say, of a specific island. You can have maybe 100 shards of that island running at a time, and each one acts as a lobby that can have, let's say, 1 to 30 players, like maybe 28 players roughly. Sometimes main lobbies can have up to 60 players, but that's about it. Anything above that, like if you were to try and stuff everybody on one server, like hundreds of players, maybe even thousands, the game would not be able to handle it. I mean, it'd crash almost immediately. So the activities in that lobby are limited in scope and size, and having the capability to have like 100 200 players in one lobby means that you can have larger playable areas, more stuff going on, and host games that are more heavy, I guess.
Yeah, I can testify that like even in Roblox's ecosystem, like where they host all of the servers for the players, even they're getting like a server to host like over 80 players is pretty tough. And it must be, you know, pretty overbearing when you've got like games that have like 500,000 concurrent players. You know, like at certain point, yeah, I wonder if what I guess another question I'm putting out to the group is that player cap dictated by whether people can host their own servers or whether Hytale servers will be hosted on their end?
That's a good question. Because we know that player hosting is available, and I think there's a difference between hosting your Orbis Adventure and then hosting a server as well. Because Orbis Adventure, I assume, might be capped by like 4, 6, 8. I don't think you'll be able to invite 30 people into your single player world. You might need a server for that one. But how big do the servers get for that?
If you're self-hosting, I don't see why there would have to be a cap. I feel like it would just be whatever your system can handle. But if it's like using their own hosting, then yeah, there would have to be some kind of cap. Otherwise, I mean, you'd be wasting so much bandwidth.
Yeah,
So when they're saying that they hit that 100-player test limit, that's a good sign, right? Whether it's player hosted or custom server.
I mean, it depends on the perspective. If we're just stress testing the engine, I feel like just hitting 100 concurrent players regardless is impressive. But whether or not like a network can do it, like that, there's other steps involved. It's like how robust is the infrastructure for like, you know, connecting players together from similar regions. Like, is there different nodes across different continents? Is there some kind of ping-based matchmaking? Is there, you know, at some point you're just limited with ping,
Yeah,
like
and then all this
physical
stuff
distance.
happening. Like if you've got like multiple mini games happening as well, and like all these crazy events going
And
on.
how complex are they? How many blocks are being manipulated? Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's really difficult to say how impressive it is right now because we don't know anything. Really, we just know they hit 100 players. It's not the same thing hitting 100 players on a bare bones, just a map and 100 people, or a capital with actually changing stuff and mini games and whatever. You know, it's not the same.
Yeah, if you're talking like vanilla Skyblock, if we're talking like Minecraft, like you could look up in the sky and then hit like 3,000 FPS, and then you could log into Hypixel Skyblock Lobby 1 with like 100 players, and then look at like the floor and hit like maybe 60.
Yeah.
So like it really depends like what's going on. And I'm curious what the effective limit is player-wise. Like if it was like stupid simple, nothing loaded whatsoever, like how high could the player count go in theory?
Yeah, that's what I was interested in. What is their theoretical limit? Because this, I mean, this is an early version of the game, internal test, and they got 100. When the game is completely finished, fully optimized, what's the limit at that point?
Yeah, and they can start cutting the unnecessary things, you know, to squeeze more performance out of it.
It kind of worries me as well that some of the coolest experiences and like open world stuff, and say if someone created like a whole new Orbis, right, for example, like maybe there's so much to do or so much going on in that it kind of, like, at least in Roblox, some of the best experiences almost feel lonely because you can only play them with like 5 or 6 people because there's so much going on. And so you have these open worlds with these really cool effects and things to do in like 100 different places to interact and 10 different jobs. But at the end of the day, you're only playing with like 10 people.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like really hard to feel immersed in like that world in a way. So I wonder if that'll limit like how people design their own worlds as well. Like say if someone or a team, I guess, were to dedicate themselves to like making something like Orbis, right? Like you know, a new adventure mode or something, or a new adventure world that can be downloaded. Like would that be limited, kind of like Orbis is, like you were saying, Myne, to maybe only like 4, 6, 8 players or whatever the case would end up being with that? But who knows?
I think the difference would be if you host it yourself or if you host it on a server.
Yeah.
Because the comparison I'm thinking of right now is Winecraft. Winecraft, the big MMORPG in Minecraft, that is basically a completely new adventure in Minecraft, and that is you're able to play it with hundreds of other people. And I think on a certain server, there's maybe like 60 people, 80 people at once. And so the world feels pretty lively, even though the map is fairly gigantic. So I imagine that Hytale's going to be able to do the same thing. When you were talking about that, I was thinking about the different planets, because you were talking about creating a new Orbis. What if you have 40 people on Orbis at a time, and then there's 20 people on Nexus, and then there's 10 people on Numdrazzle, for example? How are they going to be counted? I assume that's just going to be different dimensions, right? Kind of like the nether dimension and the overworld dimension.
Yeah, or maybe that's separate servers or instances, or sharding, as Thirty said earlier.
I was trying really hard to avoid that comparison. I really enunciated the D. But yeah, I was about to say that it goes back to that. It is, at the end of the day, it's going to have to be shards. Like, you can't just have 10,000 players in one world. Like, it's not possible, regardless. Like, it doesn't matter how powerful of a server you have.
Maybe you can try and simulate it, but it's never gonna be one actual server because it doesn't matter how well optimized the game is. It's just gonna
I
split.
mean, games have tried. Like, I mean, Fezzy, who couldn't make it today, would have gushed about, you know, Elite Dangerous and how it's able to simulate a infinite capacity shard. I don't recall how it does that, but apparently there are games that do. So
I know that there were always like ideas around like certain Minecraft servers in the earlier days that were like, oh, if you go past a certain chunk, like region or border, it like instance you or teleports you to like a new server, and so it's sort of like connected a continent together with all different servers being like different areas or towns or whatever.
But then it just runs into that same problem of like a 100-player limit.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, Connor, because you saw footage of the Capitol, you were able to experience it visually how much is going on. This is 100 players in the Capitol. The Capitol, the way you describe it, like transformed in real time, and that real-time transformation is happening for all 100 players. Then do you think that changes how your perspective is about how capable this server bandwidth is?
No, I don't know. It's hard to say because I didn't get a great look at it, and from what I recall, like, so the angle that I saw from what they showed me was like, clearly it wasn't the main part of the Capitol. It was like taken from an angle that was like angled upwards towards the sky, towards like there was like a large tower sort of peak thing, and like that's all I really saw. There was no like real area for congregating or any like big ship like we've seen in the past. Like, but that was because I assume that was intentionally obscured, right? Like it was like right at the back of the island or something wherever I was looking.
Yeah.
And it like all changing. Like I still don't know if that was in engine or not. Like I can't tell. Like again, it was only like a quick 5-second video. I only got to see it once before they sort of briskly moved on. And so like from what I know, like it like looked like something that could be easily achievable, and like if there was loads of players online, it'd just be like a live world event, like a Fortnite boss or a concert or something, right? Like it'd just be that shared experience. I can't imagine it happening often, right? I feel like if it was to happen, it wouldn't be like every 10 seconds. It would be like maybe once a day or something.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, something like just a live world event, I imagine. But it's hard to tell really, because that all was work in progress too, and so I have no idea where they're at with the capital, and it sucks because like that is the one part that I saw that I would love for them to have shown, so that they could then expand on it a bit more, and that's like the bit they've kept quite close to their chests. So.
Yeah, the capital is something I personally wish they spilled a lot more, because this isn't, as far as I know, the capital isn't a spoiler. I think they've mentioned that the capital has a role to play with Orbis. It's not just a hub. The way John described it, it's aiming to play a role for every type of player, not just acting as a lobby. It's the main place to hang out and connect players to everything in Hytale. It's going to showcase creations from the community, not just Orbis. Hugo, what do you think is the capital if it's not just a lobby or hub? How do you imagine the capital playing out?
I don't know, man. I think we just know words at this point, right? Like we haven't seen anything. I think it is a hub, but it's like the main thing, like the main hub. If you want to meet your friends, you're not gonna go to one random server instantly. You're gonna go there and then go to the server, if that makes sense. It's like what connects all of Hytale together, like the people's creations, Orbis, and any other experiences, is like the center of everything. That's how I see it.
The one thing I'm curious about is what the point of the hub is, or like how they're trying to sell the hub over, or the capital over just using a title screen or like a menu screen.
That's what I was thinking. It's like, how are they going to make people want to interact with anything that's outside of the games that they came to play?
Yeah.
Like, what's the incentive? Is there some kind of cosmetic? Is there...
I think there'll definitely be like some sort of connection to everything.
Because
yeah.
At least with Hypixel, I'm the type of person that's like level 440 plus in Skyblock, but I've never like used a kit in the lobby before. Like, I'm sorry, they couldn't convince me to use the lobby. Like, and that's what I'm thinking about with like this stuff, because it's like, it looks nice, like this big castle and marketplace, but like, why? Why am I there?
I feel like the team might have solutions to that, but if they do, they wouldn't want to spoil them, because they're also kind of competitive advantages for if like other games were trying to muster up a similar
take
space.
the capital first. And yeah,
it's like a really weird comparison as well, but it kind of, the setup they've got right now kind of reminds me of Toontown, which was like you'd log in, you'd have your own house and neighborhood, which was kind of like instant stuff with just like a randomly generated like set of neighbors that would be on the same server as you. And then you can do all that housing stuff, and because it sounds like you can kind of do that with Player Island stuff in the capital. And then you go to like the town square, and that's where like everyone is, and they're all like sharing in like little mini games that you can play, and people are like running around and talking to each other and going to the shops. And then like there's offshoots from the hub, which are like streets, and you can go down those streets and do like PvP stuff and like fight against like like the bad guys and stuff. I feel like it'll kind of be that vibe. Like Hytale, like the capital will be kind of like that town square, and people can go off to different branches of whatever the capital is. But I don't know. I feel like it's Hypixel. If anyone's gonna have like some sort of insight on how to make it a bit more of a winning formula, like what was in sort of like Minecraft's heyday, or even like Roblox, because Roblox doesn't really have hubs.
Yeah, it just has the website.
Maybe they could steal an idea that I was going to give to Skyblock, but like I would be extremely happy to see some version of like Atlas anti-cheat or like some player driven, like, let's look at this footage, does it seem sus? Yes, then vote against that person. And if you have enough votes, then that means that they're cheating and they get punished. Imagine like a police station in the in the main marketplace hub area, and then you could, as a player, walk in there and get rewards for accurately reporting cheaters, like across the entirety of Hytale. Like any server that has like Atlas enabled or like player driven anti-cheat enabled would be thrown into like the pool of like what game modes are checked. That'd be sick.
I always love the idea of like bounty systems for like trying to find exploits and things, and that reminds me that literally
Yeah,
like
that
a few
too.
years ago, I swear Hypixel had one of those things. They had like a
Yeah.
They
bounty.
did
They still
for
do, I think.
Skywars, right?
I
No,
think
but
they
like,
did one for Hytale as well, right?
Yeah.
Hugo?
yeah, the Hypixel Studios website, I think it has security. I'm checking right
Oh,
now.
I'm thinking of something else.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
bounty for bugs.
I can
There are, like,
recall a
different
similar
tiers.
thing.
I also find that so funny that there's a bounty for bugs, but it's like there's nothing for Hytale released yet.
Bro, it's been there for like 2 years already. It's
Floating trees. Where's my reward?
Give me my money.
No branches in this video.
But I think like maybe as like a, I don't know, having, how do we make it not just a fancy replacement for a UI?
Yeah, I think that's
I think
the
the Atlas thing
difficulty.
is one way to do that because it connects every game mode. But like, I
But
guess
that's also just like
modifying
a
an
certain niche
avatar-
for anti-cheat. I mean, majority of players are still going to ignore that. And when you brought out Toontown, I've not played Toontown, but it sounds very similar to what maybe Club Penguin or Animal Jam would be. It's basically just
Yeah.
the main hub where everyone plays, and then every part of the town has the mini games.
But it was the same with Club Penguin. It's even better example than Toontown because Club Penguin had the map.
Yeah.
Where you could literally just teleport to any mini game you wanted and play it and
Mm.
get instant stuff with other players. But despite that, I would still use the social walk around features to either it was completing missions or Easter eggs or being with friends and just socializing and hanging out and role playing and all that different stuff. Like, and this is when I'm talking like I was a kid,
Mhm.
right? So maybe that's where they will be appealing more to like the younger demographic, or they could be more smart about it, right? And try and create more of a social space for more of like grown-up people, like akin to like World of Warcraft social spaces,
Yeah.
right? Like Stormwind or Goldshire or something.
And we know a lot of the devs are big fans of World of Warcraft, and we've seen a lot of inspiration from that series already. So maybe they are taking inspiration from the community aspect of World of Warcraft, because that's, as far as I know, the biggest aspect of it is the community, the way people trade, the way people interact, have clans together. That's a big part of that, and I assume they want that social aspect to be it. I think just the biggest issue for me is what is stopping me from going into the menu and clicking Orbis instead of walking to the Orbis portal.
Nothing. And I think that the point is that like anyone that's going to do that is always going to do that.
Yeah.
Anyone that's going to go off and ignore social spaces despite them being there is always going to do that. So let them. So I
Yeah.
do think there will be UI and everything, but like I
Mhm.
just think they're going to provide that social area and the connectivity for the sake of it not only looking freaking awesome, but like then just having that cohesion and that appeal to the maybe the younger demographic, but anyone that enjoys social spaces and stuff.
I mean, I would also look at like what areas are poorly done in, like, for example, Minecraft multiplayer. It's like, what are we missing that's in the game? A proper server browser. So like if they just so happen to give it to us in like a physical kind of way where we walk up to it, like fair enough. Like if it's showing like, wow, this is the most popular new upcoming rising game mode of the month, and then it's like that's the spot where it is, where that position is taken each month, like fair enough. I think that's kind of neat. being introduced to it without having to find like a server listing website or whatever. So like I don't know, what are some other things that kind of suck about making servers? Like instancing your own and then having players join it. Like it's a pain in Minecraft to do that. So if they can address all the needs that we're missing with like multiplayer games, like in general, honestly, um, I guess putting that in the main hub area could be a
I
way
do
to
think that they,
incentivize use.
if anyone's able to do that, it is them because of the fact that they come from Hypixel. They struggled with the limited capabilities of Minecraft and what that engine provides. And they probably have wanted to do thousands of things. And then they were like, oh, I guess we can't. And I bet you they have a whole list in their documents being like, oh, yeah, we wanted this. Hytale's going to have this. Hytale's going to have this, blah, blah, blah. So that all of those... Yeah?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
So that all of those frustrations will be canceled out, and then they have really the full creator experience. I mean, they say creators first. They want to make sure that people don't feel limited with what they can do. And it kind of reminds me of Roblox in a way. I know that's a comparison thrown around, but it's going to be the creators'
like
game.
popular mods would be really sick too. Like I think I mentioned the Steam Workshop at one point. Like imagine if that was built in, where it's like, hey, here's a popular mod that the community loves, and it's proven to be like safe to install and automatically installs because it's all in engine, and it's just like. Like imagine Optifine if it was just like officially but not officially endorsed by Mojang, and you could just click a button in vanilla and just have it. Like that'd be crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know. And again, could be something that's done in the space that is the hub world. I keep forgetting the name.
The capital.
The capital. There we go.
What were you going to say, Connor?
Yeah, I was gonna say one thing that I'd love to, and not to tangent too much, but is just like an objective rating from someone like external. Obviously, this would be like when they get to like public playtests of like a rating of the engine, like out of 10. Like as far as someone who knows custom engines and like what would they say about like how intricate and unique it is? Just because I'm just curious on that level of like, is this really something that is like
Mind-blowing.
like world-alteringly special and unique, or is it just something that is like without limitation because they know that they're trying to avoid things that, you know, say ecosystems like Minecraft or Roblox had or have?
I mean,
It's hard to gauge.
I'm sure
gauge
once the
that.
game comes out, people are gonna find some way to look at the source code or something like that, and you know, find the limited and what it can do, and like be like, okay, was this
The only
really
way to
worth?
really know
You'll be able
is to
tell
see
by
the.
using it as well, right? Like
Yeah.
you'll be able to tell if it's
Yeah.
a good or bad engine, I'm sure. If
Yeah,
you-
exactly. We'll be able to go into the game and be like, oh, this feels great, or we'll
My
be
gauge
like,
for that is
"Ooh."
like how sophisticated of a thing can you make in it in how short a time?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's going to be all towards the creator tools. Like, how accessible is it? You have to really dig into, you know, difficult code to be able to alter this one parameter. I assume it's going to be fairly easy, but we haven't seen that yet.
It almost gets me excited for just the concept of like a game jam in Hytale, like people just being set out like, hey, you've got 24 hours to go make something cool, and like knowing that you have all those tools in the engine to then just go off and do something.
Having all that
sure-
built in would be insane. Like endorsed by the
guarantee
devs.
that has got to be something that the devs have done, like if not once, then multiple times at this point. Like they must get together and like go, hey, like let's all like just come up with some cool things over the next day as like a team test or a team exercise kind of thing.
That sounds like something
The,
John would do.
I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
It'd be so cool.
The server team does that every year, but that'd be sick though, opening it up to the public, like with mods. Like that'd be insane.
Partnering with someone like Pirate Software, who has been in contact with the Hypixel team. I mean, Pirate Software is very well known for doing game jams with his entire community. He can definitely host something like that in Hytale, because I assume, well, actually, I don't assume anything. Is Hytale going to be an easier entry level than just making your own game. Surely, right? Because they have the engine, they have the
Yeah.
assets. You're going to be able to jump straight into just, okay, this is how game making kind of works. And then maybe some people are going to learn from Hytale the way they do learning from Roblox, and then branching out, making their own games at some point.
I always think back to the poster that leaked about the world and how nice of a presentation that was for something
Oh, yeah.
more or less technical, like the chunk system, like with the drawings and explanations. I think they're probably going to have like a bunch of that kind of documentation to start with for people. But also you can just go to the game, play Orbis, and be like, oh, this is so cool. How did they do it? Let me check this script or this, I don't know, this interface that explains it, you know? You have so many examples and everything is so open that it's going to be so easy to get into, I think.
Yeah, I think the entry level is going to be quite easy to get into. But it's also like there's a huge range, because just as much as you can hop into a creative world or a flat world or whatever you can generate and make like a maze, right, where it's just placing leaf blocks and making a maze, you can then go all the way up to making like potentially, you know, if it still rings true to the trailer, right, like League clones, right, like, or like League parody games kind of style.
I mean, we're seeing that with Fortnite right now. The Fortnite creative, or like the game creator, you can basically make any game. I mean, they just made a tactical shooter that's similar to CSGO. I know they're making something similar to League of Legends right now. That creative system has been huge for game devs, and I assume that's going to be similar in Hytale as well.
What's crazy to me is out of like those, and I may be sounding a little ignorant here, but like at least as far as the three main ecosystems, if you were to consider like Unreal Engine, Fortnite, like UEFN, Roblox, and then like what Hytale's like aiming to be, like those ecosystems, it's crazy that the Roblox is the one where you can create the highest fidelity experiences. Like you can create actual like realistic AAA looking games,
like 4K HD.
Yeah, and like to me that's just wild that like it will always have that edge, because I don't think you'll be able to do that in Hytale.
No.
I don't think Unreal Engine UEFN is going to be able to achieve that. I think
I feel
UEFN
like-
is more on the line of like mobile game style, or like old school Roblox game style sort of like maps it has at the moment, but I don't know.
From the outside looking in with Roblox, it's like the MS Paint of like game engines. Like you could technically do anything, but it doesn't look that easy to do.
Yeah.
You have pirate software doing doodles, and then you have like someone doing the Big Les show, which is just like this intricate, beautifully mastercrafted paint.
Some of the MS Paint things I've seen on Twitter are just Bob Ross level. They're insane.
I don't know if you ever played Line Rider as a kid, like where you draw a line and he'd like ride along it, and people would just make these mastercraft,
Yeah.
like art pieces and roller coasters and.
There's something I touched about Pirate Software being in contact with the devs, and John mentioned that no, he's not getting in contact with a creator. They are contacting a creator team. Curious what that entails and what that even means. This is some sort of development team, correct? This is some sort of like Hugo, you work for MCC, was it?
Yeah, Nox Crew MCT.
And Nox Crew. And so would it be a team like that? Would it be a smaller team? How should I interpret this maybe?
I don't know. I'm guessing any team that just does cool development stuff in UGC games. Like it could be some Roblox team, for example, with experience with Lua. It could be some Fortnite team. I think any team works for them because they want to see how they react to the tools for the first time and how easy it is for them. So someone from Minecraft is nice to have because it's a similar environment, but someone from Fortnite might be even more interesting. Like how do they react to this environment we have, you know?
It could also imply that they're going to put together a team made up of individuals that they select. Like, are we sure that it's already a team that's been selected, put together, or is it a theoretical team or
The
group?
Hytale Avengers.
I guess that would be worth considering, probably.
I think for the first team that they bring in, it would make more sense to have an organized team and be like, all right, go. instead of them first having to, get to know each other, learn how to work with each other. I think just
You'd want a
getting
team
an
with
organized team.
infrastructure.
Yeah.
And I think like the thing is as well is like it's kind of like they say that they're going to do that with a team, and then that they allude to like them making a mini game, I think, in the blog post. But it's like really loose wording, so it's like hard to tell. I wonder what that means, like what restrictions the team will have when they come into the environment, and like was it their choice to make a mini game, or was it something that Hytale wanted them to do specifically? Like, how is that going to work? And then obviously, well, with hope, if it goes well, that would be like a mini game we get to play at launch or like during the beta or whatever the case may be.
That'd be sick if it was a game during the beta and be like, hey, this is what our first internal team or like internal external team was able to do. And then during the beta, I assume everyone's going to have option like availability to these creator tools. And then they're like, hey, open competition during the beta, create a game, and it will be an official Hytale game.
Jam would be crazy.
The beta, yeah.
So good.
The Hytale beta game jam.
Because that would be
the marketplace, that's for sure.
Exactly, and that would incentivize so many creator teams to really dig deep into these creator tools and explore everything. I mean, that's what you want a beta to do. They want every single piece of that creator process tested. What better incentive than making your winning minigame an official minigame for the first 3 months of the game or something like that?
You are right that if they're going to task a team with that, it probably is going to be a pre-existing one, because they'd want them to have infrastructure and their own delegation process and all of that stuff. Because if Hytale had to run a whole second team themselves, like kind of micromanage them, it's already a very tough thing to do. So I assume it will be a seasoned team at the very least in whatever aspect it is, whether that's the Minecraft ecosystem or if it's Roblox's foundation or base of code and stuff. And or it could it could be a totally different team. These guys have got people from veterans from all around the industry, so they know a few people. I'm sure they could pull in all sorts of sectors of the industry to come in and check it out. And I don't know, maybe they're still doing that, because it's probably a really hard choice for them to figure out like what's ground zero for their first team. So yeah,
I mean, surely they have a lot of Riot people already taking a look at these and being like, hey, come check out what we did real quick. What do you think of this? And then they're able to iterate. Because Riot would still count as internal, correct? That's the stance? Or is Riot already external?
I'd count that as internal.
Who knows? I don't know.
I think we've asked this question before and we don't have an answer, and I don't think they're gonna answer this. But it would be really interesting, because if they're able to use Riot as internal testers, that is a lot of really, really professional and high quality devs taking a look at them, and maybe one of the Riot devs is like, maybe that's not the move, do this instead, and then it completely changes their outlook for the better.
I kind of see what you mean. I do think that Riot has tested the game. Like, they've definitely tested it with Riot. Like,
yeah.
They've been at their headquarters like multiple times. Like, I did my talk at Riot HQ. Like, so Riot definitely. I think it's obviously not all of Riot, right? So that's the thing. It's certain people that have a stake in the game, or like
it's like higher management.
Yeah, and stuff like that. So like whatever the case is there, I'm sure that they've got people that they can pull in, and advisors and stuff like that whenever they need, and people that can come in and just hard test the creative tools and stuff. And I bet that gives the team a bunch of like sparks as well, just like having people come in and make stuff, and it's like, oh, we'd never even thought to use the tools that way.
Right, because they're coming from a completely different like genre of game dev. Maybe some of them are from Valorant, they're from League of Legends, and they just have a different way of thinking about making games. And that brings a whole new perspective to, because I mean, when you're working on a project for so long, you kind of tunnel vision, and you need someone to come and be like, whoa, this is so cool, you can do this and this, but you were just tunnel vision thinking about like one way that this tool can be used.
So much of Roblox is like plagued by the mobile phone like layout of games, and like the microtransaction riddled sort of pay to win like side of games with like premium currencies and all that stuff. And it's something that is in Minecraft as well, and it's kind of like infected the Fortnite area. And so I hope that with like the tools that we've got and everything, and then with like Riot coming in and being able to test stuff and make cool things, that it doesn't end up going that route and there's more inspiration there. Like I remember we were working on in a Roblox team, and everyone had this mindset of like, oh, like microtransactions, premium currency, like special passes that you can buy, and like obviously like we aim to make it like fair game. And I didn't personally like ever design like pay to win monetization systems, but we ended up pulling in a AAA developer who'd worked on like the Battlefield series and a bunch of other things, and their mindset was so different from our mindset in terms of like approaching game design and like the way to like just approach a good experience like without thinking about profit and stuff like that. And so it was an eye-opener, and I wonder if like that is the similar thing that they'd have if they started to bring in people from like Riot Games, for example. Sorry, a bit long-winded there, but
Yeah, most definitely. But you open up a window that I wanted to talk about, and I think is going to become more relevant as we go into this year, and especially next year. Multi-platform. This is the big reason that they switched their engine. I'm curious, do you think this year, I mean, I think it's fairly obvious that we're going to get a lot more gameplay and screenshots of Hytale this year. When do you think they're going to showcase some of the mobile, some of the console footage of Hytale? Do you think that's even possible for this year? Do you think that's basically right at release? How do you think they're going to go about sharing this cross-platform? Because that's a big selling point of this new engine.
I feel like if it's already assumed that it's going to be multi-platform, just knowing that and knowing that the behavior is consistent between platforms, I feel like they probably wouldn't even need to show really much of anything until release.
Yeah, I think multi-platform is like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not really a brag in the industry to be multi-platform. Like it kind of is, but like it's also
on a technical level it is, but
obviously it's a massive feat, of course, but like a lot of like big heavy hitting games now come out on multiple platforms, and obviously we might have to wait a couple of years for like ports and things like that, or like exclusivity rights to end and things. But like I don't think that they're going to bring attention to it in the case of like their marketing is going to be like, oh, you can play it on phone or like PC and like you can play it anywhere. Like maybe a little bit like at the end of a trailer it can be like available on all devices.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's a feature they're going to explicitly advertise. And if they do showcase it in a blog, I don't think it'll be until we have like things like the UI and stuff that we can actually draw comparisons on different devices too, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the UI is what I'm personally most interested in because, I mean, we see a lot of capabilities with Hytale. I'm curious how all of those different key combinations will fit on a little phone. Or if the phone is just going to be a limited version and they're like, hey, if you want to do these creator tools, you got to hop on a laptop, hop on an iPad maybe. Is that something that we can see, or do you think every single aspect of Hytale from the PC version will be on console, will be on mobile?
Probably
I don't
with
think
some
that's
kind of
possible.
shortcut.
Yeah.
I feel like probably it could be made available, but like there's a limit. Like I remember back in the day, there was like an app for GIMP 2 on like the iPhone. And it was the worst thing I'd ever seen in my life. Like it opened a window on Apple software, like, and there was like it was like this weird like emulated layer that I was operating through, and it was like terrible. So like technically I could do everything, but like I would not want to at all. I don't think Hytale has the capacity to be like that, but like I don't see why not to allow people to do everything that the engine's capable of, just with some kind of workaround. And maybe if it's on a mobile device, something like a backbone, you know, add like FPS controls to it.
I
But
believe with Roblox, and correct me if I'm wrong, I guess Hugo, you might know, they have Roblox like as a game and also an app and browser and whatever. But then they also have Roblox Studio as a separate app.
That's what I was going to get into as well. I think that's what's going to happen.
I think you can like. I believe that you could do some things on like a better device, like a tablet or a bit more of a modern phone. You could probably do some cool things, but yeah. Sorry, I'll pass off to Hugo.
Honestly, I do not know.
Oh.
I played like Roblox for like 2 hours in my life, but I feel like for Hytale, it's a bit tricky because things like, for example, the build tools. It only makes sense that they're available on the phone as well because it's literally just
That's
game
creative
code.
mode,
That makes
yeah.
sense. Yeah, but other things like Luau scripting. How do you translate that into like? Could you make a script on your phone? Yeah, will it be terrible? Probably as well. Like the experience while making it, not the script.
Then
So
again, with a language model, maybe it wouldn't be that terrible.
yeah,
Like
I
a
don't know.
GitHub Copilot.
Is
I
there
guess we'll
any
see.
any other games that like are really popular for modding where they're multi-platform? And because if so, I can't imagine there's many developers bragging like, "Oh, I developed all of this on my phone." Like, I feel like it's kind of just
Yeah,
normal.
I
Like,
can't
if
imagine.
you're gonna make an adventure map
I
or an
think the only
experience.
thing that I think would be on mobile is maybe a model maker or like the artist side of things, and then you would have Hytale and then like the Hytale Studio, for example, and then you open that up and it's the Hytale model maker. That could be
Yeah,
a
if anything,
possibility.
yeah, I guess it could be like an ease of thing. Like you imagine you're on your desktop, you're working with a team that's like remote around the world, you're like all designing assets, but you can like drag and drop them into folders and then they appear on like the tools in your phone or whatever,
Hmm.
or like on the app in your phone. Like that sort of level of stuff I could kind of see could help people just with,
Yeah,
I
that'd
don't
be
know, it's
nice.
cool, it's nice, it's efficient and stuff.
Very, very interesting things. I think console's definitely going to be the most limited when it comes to that because you are not doing anything on a controller. At least for an iPad, for example, I can see creative tools being used, but find me doing that with a joystick.
I mean, don't underestimate it. I controller schemes for like, because I brought this example up in the other roundtable, like Forge mode in Halo. Like, if the controls are intuitive enough, you could make a controller work. Like, it would be slow, maybe, but like, I mean, I remember spending like days making like obstacle courses in it, and it would like multiplayer maps even using a controller. And there's like buttons you could press to like align the angle perfectly, like instead of having to fiddle with it. There could be little shortcuts for sure.
I do wonder if there'll be like eventually a whole branch then of developers as well that just optimize for console experiences, like creating them so that there's just more options for console players. Maybe like obviously they can play regular maps and stuff, but I wonder if there's anything like that where you can change up the format and things. I remember I joined a Roblox game and it was all 2D, and I was like, whoa, this is just crazy. It's wild.
Yeah, I feel like each medium probably should have its own
Marketplace.
meta, so to speak, for like how to use the controls. Maybe no, I wouldn't say separate the platforms by marketplace. It would be a nice concept to just have everything's made for every platform, so it's like I don't know. I'd be a bit bummed out if in the level browser it's like, oh, this one is console only. Like, why?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I
I
will
think
say
everything should be PC, but I can understand if you're making an RTS, that's going to be very difficult for mobile or console players to play if you're making StarCraft 2 in Hytale. I
I
just
mean,
like you've just gotta I mean it's part of the core design of a game, right? Like if you know that it's going to be on a multi-platform, you just have to think about that stuff, and sometimes it might be worth, if you know there's an audience, like if there's enough players that play on like desktop and you know that your game is only good to play on desktop, then go for it. But if there's a
do you
list
think
of
there'd be a toggle to be like this is a PC only or like no cross-platform available
Well,
for
like
this?
Roblox has just like the basic functionality of just being able to detect what device the player is on, and that changes like the UI, right? Like based on the device. So as long as you can find workarounds for fitting buttons on screens, then that's good. But if your game doesn't allow for that, then I don't know. Yeah, you gotta find workarounds or sacrifice. You know, a toggle, I don't know, because like then that gets into like the filter system of things, and like that comes into like the server side of things, and then also the product side of things. Like, you know, can things be like 18 rated, or like can they be rated certain ways, or can they be tagged in certain ways or categorized? Like, how does all that work?
And
I'm
it's
sure that's
crazy how
still-
much stuff like this filters players out. Like the first example I think of, it's kind of similar to this, is like the Call of Duty games. If you were to, for example, try to queue up a Black Ops 2 lobby and you had no DLCs installed, you can only queue against other players that don't have any of the DLCs. And then if you were to get into a lobby with DLCs, you have to have all of them because there's like no one that has like just the one specific DLC that you want the map from. So it's like there's two different groups of players that cannot commingle because of their like DLC orientation. So like any filter like that, I would advise against. Like I do agree that everything should work everywhere, and if that causes problems, like maybe have a warning somewhere. But like honestly, hardware is getting insane too. Like I don't even know if it's an excuse anymore to have anything that's possible in the engine like lag out a system completely. Like I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be a lag issue. It'd just be a UI issue, I guess, and
Yeah.
that'd be on the devs'
And
responsibility.
yeah, exactly. I think that's the dev's responsibility.
There's one last thing in the blog post that I want to touch on, and it's the new lighting. And I think we can kind of breeze past it, but maybe if you guys are more familiar with lighting, it's a big deal, and we can touch more on it. Smooth lighting. The lighting looks amazing now. We saw the before and after where it was just like blocky changes of like darker to lighter, and I didn't even notice that much in the old engine, to be honest. It's not something where I was like, ooh, it's not necessary.
Yeah, I think they avoided showing that part of the engine, if that makes sense. Like wherever there was color lighting, they tried not using stairs, for example, which is what looks the worst in the image.
Yeah.
As a Queebec, I actually absorb light, so like professionally speaking here, like I love it. I think the changes are like spot on. I think it's really good.
Yeah.
And then we saw the gameplay as a whole. We finally saw more than a screenshot. We didn't see the pig. The pig is still gone. But we saw a
Biggest
Am I-
thing.
we saw a brand new house. We saw the building tools. Connor, you already made videos on it, but give us your visceral reaction about specifically the house video. I think that was the most impressive because we saw most of Hytale, I guess, what they want to show us.
We have torch animations.
Yeah,
That's cool.
we have
That's
floating
nice to
trees.
see. Yeah, I just looking beyond that. I'm kind of like a little vexed that they have the torch animations but not the fire animations, but it's cool. Like it's cool. It's I mean, is it just more like what was my visceral reaction to it?
Yeah, so what stood out to you? What do you think was concerning, maybe even? Were there any concerning parts? Were you just like overall filled with joy?
I mean, it's definitely a clip that I watched, metaphorically speaking, with like my eyes peeking through my fingers kind of thing, because it clearly looked like it was going to be ambitious, like from the first few seconds of watching it.
Yeah.
And then as it gets into things, I'm like, oh, okay, like clearly they, like skip the door animation.
Yeah, that was the big one. That was the big one.
Yeah, and then like certain assets being missing, and just like the room feeling quite static. Now the lighting's cool, and to see like more assets in the new engine is always great. But it's a far cry from like some of the videos we used to see, back in circa 2019, 2020, when they were showcasing like some of the cool gameplay stuff. And so obviously that's just the nature of the beast. Like the engine's still a work in progress, and they're doing great importing everything over. And then obviously making it all look really cool is something you do after, which they probably didn't know as a younger development team back in the day. They made it all look really cool and focused on the visual side of things for the trailer and for, for the testing purposes and engine purposes. But, they know now that they need the infrastructure and they need the sturdiness of their own engine, right? And now they've got that. I think that they've just been filling in the blanks, which is a great term, and I think that term probably really helped with tiding people over with like the 6 months it took to go from the summer blog post video we got to then this, which is already like a really big improvement, right? It's a drastic improvement. I think no one is arguing that. And so to know like there's another 6 months to a year of that progress to go, as far as like when we start to get more footage and see things get more fleshed out. Yeah, it excites me. I can't wait to see what they go up to and add fire animations.
30, I want to get into the meat and potatoes. We've seen the gameplay. What does this gameplay tell you about the current state of Hytale? What do you think this year is going to entail? Just kind of jump right into it, and if you want to get to the thing I think most people are interested about, your predictions, we'll kind of roll into that as well.
Well, I was going to build off of what Connor said, where it's like now we're seeing the new engine where, yeah, maybe it's a bit rougher around the edges gameplay looking than the old engine, but we can only speculate, but I have a feeling this new house took significantly less time to set up than the old house, because most of what they're trying to do is like already in engine, and it's not like quote hard coded to look a certain way for the specific trailer. Like this is what the game just looks like, with very little staging, very little effort gone into staging, which is a great indicator, because that means once all the blanks are filled in, so to speak, like the rain sounds, the fire animations, the maybe a larger variety of blocks, including maybe some system for bookshelves or whatever, right? But now that they have this super solid framework, they can build things that look just as great as they used to with like far less effort. And I think that's what we're probably seeing here, where they're focusing on the fundamentals, the important things, and only now we're finally starting to see polish, just enough to keep us excited.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Predictions wise,
What is let's start it off easy. What does 2025 look like for you? What do you think will happen internally and publicly?
Well, I said this before. Creators are not very patient people. They like to make things. They like to create. It's in the name. So if they're getting contacted now, then like it's not going to be long before we start to see things made by creators, or at least here. Sorry, I'm still like kind of groggy in the morning. I feel like I'm not sure if we'll be able to see what these people make, but we'll at least hear about it in a blog post. I'd like to see footage of it. It would be pretty interesting to see like what did the first creators make, like how are they testing the systems. Yeah, all I can do is speculate on the specifics.
So that's kind of what we're going to see internally. What about the communication, you think? Are they going to open up a lot more? Are we going to see a lot more? Or are they going to be a little bit of the same as last year?
Well, I feel like they pulled away in the first place because they knew there was a lot ahead. And they've already been showing more, which means they're more comfortable showing us more, which means that they're more secure. And like, this is what the game's going to be like. So we might as well start showing it off. And I feel like it's going to keep trending upwards. I'm not sure if it's going to go to like a blog every couple months, but maybe. If it's getting to that point where, again, staging these like little demonstrations doesn't take nearly as long as it did, why not? Right? If they can show something new and interesting that is going to be in the game, and they have the capacity to make the blog post, like that'd be a good way to get hype going if, it's close to release.
Now, and Hugo, I'm curious, do you agree with what 30 just said, or do you have kind of a different plan of what 2025 is going to look like for their team?
No, I sure hope they open up a bit more. I think the development updates have been great lately, even if all we got was like a little pan out on a cave. But I think they did a really good job explaining where they are and where they're going. And I feel like now that they can share more of the engine, I think they're like really confident now. Like the cabin video we saw is something that we hadn't seen in years. And last time we got one, it was like the game was way more polished. If you remember the old cabin video.
Oh yeah.
And the fact that they're already showing like almost a minute of uncut gameplay. Well, there was a cut actually, but like a full minute of gameplay and then another full minute of gameplay. I think they're really confident. I think we're just gonna keep seeing more and more gameplay because their intention is to finish the game this year, like get it to an alpha state at the end of the year.
And they did confirm in Thankmas that there will still be public play testing. It will be a public beta / play test before full release. So that is still on the table. Everyone who thought, oh, are they still even doing a beta? They are. Still confirmed. Let's talk about it. When do you think we will see public playtesting in the sense that you and I will be able to play it?
I think I got this one.
2026. Go ahead.
Connor?
Right. So, like, I don't think that we'll see public playtesting until all of the aspects of the game are done. And so, like, they mentioned that they were doing mini games and tools in the first half of this year, and that they were going to transition then in the second half of the year to like social and adventure. Now, the mini games and tools, obviously, they're going to use like that creator team to test them in the mid-year once they're finished. I say finished, but like in a more testable or usable state, right? But then it's a question of, would they then just open up the mini games to public testing, or would they want to wait for the social and adventure part of it too to come along and then start looking at things? Because they did say that they will be rolling into more testing on the back half of the year. And so with all that in mind, obviously that's still all closed testing. It's not anything public, but like what would be the next step logically, right? I mean, I kind of am like getting like flashbacks and PTSD to like 2019 and 2020, but surely then that means the next step would be to work on a public opening of some kind, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. Are they going to splice it up, let's say, the different aspects of Hytale? Is it going to be the capital and the minigames, or the first public playtest while they're still working on adventure mode, and then boom, here's adventure mode for you guys to try out, or like a small portion of adventure mode, to not spoil it, obviously. And then creator tools are maybe the first things with the mini games. Or are we going to get Hytale all at once as a public playtest? I think I like your theory the most because of the fact that they're working on the tools and mini games in the first half. That's basically going to be ready. I mean, assume if they're working on that and then they're going on to adventure, they want to finish the first half before they move on to the second half. Then that first half is ready to test while they keep working.
I also feel like, yeah, go for it, Hugo.
I think we kind of do know a bit what their plan is. Like if you remember the summer 2024 blog post that described the first stages, first playable, then first testable, alphas and betas. They did say on that blog post, before we even got the winter one, that they would make the competitive and creative play an alpha in the middle of the year. And that alpha is what the creator team is going to use, right? And I can only assume if they're going to be play testing it and they're going to be testing it, it's going to be a beta by the end of the year, or maybe 2026 it will be beta for the creative tools. So I think they're going to test it in slices privately, and then they're going to release it publicly as a whole thing, because I don't think it makes too much sense. Like, I mean, they will release the creator tools beforehand, right?
But
I don't think they're going to... I don't think they're going to release the capital, for example, without the adventure mode. I don't think that makes sense for them.
You don't think if they're releasing the mini games, they're just going to release the capital with the mini games portion of it? You think if the capital is there, the adventure mode is definitely going to be there?
I think so, yeah. I think the adventure mode is a really powerful promotion for them. I think many people are just interested in that part of the game, and releasing it together helps them in terms of like.
So do you think mini games are going to be released that, or do you think if they're releasing it, they're releasing all of the testable Hytale ones.
I don't know. I think like it makes sense for them to release the most parts of Hytale together as possible.
I agree.
Yeah.
So they work together.
Because I think a majority of people who watched the trailer, they were like, oh my god, this is Minecraft 2. And then when they test out the first playable Hytale, oh, it's just Bed Wars. Why?
Yeah.
They
It'd be
even
weird.
say like in the first 15 minutes of the game or the experience of Hytale, you learn about all these aspects, right?
Yeah.
The 3 doors, right? You learn about creative, you learn about mini games, you learn about adventure. So having like a a vertical slice of just one of them or whatever, I feel would be an injustice. And so I feel like if they did do a beta experience, it would at least be 3 vertical slices all kind of like combined, I guess, to give like the player that sense of, oh, these are all the things, like these are the 3 doors, like these are all the options of things to do. And yeah, I don't know, I guess as well, like the other thing backing that is like, the first 2 things being mini games and creative tools they're working on, and that's obviously because the team they're bringing in is using the creative tools to make a mini game. So I do wonder if maybe that could be its own separate beta, but like maybe a closed beta or like a private beta or something like that. But I don't know, it's really hard to fathom at that point where they'd go with things, I think.
I think in terms of marketing, it would be a major misstep if they don't include some sort of survival or adventure mode within the first playable thing, because that's what the public's going to see. The public, I mean, they even see the summer pig screenshot and they're like, oh my god, this is what we've been waiting for. Imagine they see the notification, you can play Hytale. They join in and it is just minigames. And they're like, where's the game that was promised? Because they're not going to do that much research. This is just the general public. We're looking at this.
It makes you wonder if they would even benefit from a public beta.
Well, I don't want them to come across as like early access bait, right? Where everyone jumps on the bandwagon of like, oh, they're just releasing like early access everything and saying that we can just play it until they release. Like, I think if they do release a beta, it needs to be like a one and done, like boom, like here's the beta, make a huge, draw a load of attention to it. There's a cutoff date, and then like launch plans are announced, and then
I feel like
right?
maybe what they could do is put some people on a team that are gonna make the beta experience, and it's like a little mini like half story, and it's like for the express purpose of showing off the engine. Like, shout out to Portal Stories :Mel on Steam, where it's kind of like that, where it's a mod that's like a whole separate story, and it has like a whole new rule set, whatever, but it's like kind of small. So I feel like if there was a beta that was gonna have some like Adventure of Orbis, it would have like a little mini story that is not gonna transfer to the main game, because otherwise I just don't see the point of like letting people in, letting them play everything half finished. Like, that's not a good first impression either. I'd rather just show the mini games at that point, but again, that's not a good first impression either because there's no adventure.
So prologue is a cool idea though.
Like, so yeah, like a little prologue.
Yeah.
That's not a bad idea. Maybe like the beta experience would be that like some prologue story that like takes place before the events of the actual game.
Yeah, because
like I just don't see the point of doing a beta that's like all mini games, because again, people are gonna get disappointed. Yeah. Even though that logically is like what's most possible to do, because the engine is done and you're just building on top of it without making this whole world. But like, if you're able to make a beta with everything, including Adventure of Orbis, it makes you question why you're doing a beta at all.
I think
you might as well just finish it.
I think there's 3 things that they need to achieve for the beta for it to be successful. The first is, wow, this was worth the wait. For people to log in, they need to be like, wow, this was worth the wait. This is crazy. The second one is, wow, this is really fun. I want to keep playing. And then the third one is, whenever that set beta date ends, they need to be hungry for more. They need to be like, oh, when does this game release? I did not get enough of it. I think those 3 need to be achieved, because the first is going to be like, okay, but why couldn't I just play this in 2019? That's the first one is like, okay, yeah, this was worth the wait. Then the second one, they just need to, the game needs to be fun, which we've heard from the devs already that the game is fun. But then again, the person selling the product is saying that the product is good,
Why would they say, "Oh, this game"? Is fun?
No, yeah, for real. So that needs to be an external validation thing. And then it needs to really hook. So maybe in the prologue, it ends with a crazy cliffhanger. And you're like, what is this story? What did I just get into? Let me start, basically. Or just in terms of the games, like, oh, I've never felt this kind of fluidity in a game. I've never felt this kind of ability to express myself. I can't find this in another game. I need this game to come out right now. I think those are the three things they need to hit with the beta.
And before that beta is just a live digital concert from Howard or something.
The beta is just a 30-minute Lil Nas X concert. That'd be too crazy. Okay, so when do we think this beta is happening with what we've seen, with what they've talked about, Connor? When are we going to be able to play this beta?
I think 2026, because there's still a lot of work to go, and if they are going to do a beta that really shows off everything, then that means they need to get everything right, which means that takes us right to the end of this year at the very least, I think. And then, then they've got to do alpha, and then if they're doing a beta and they're really moving straight to launch after that and not becoming trapped in beta for years, then they're gonna have marketing to do and figure out, and it's just so much. It's so much, and it's a moment that's been bigged up for so long. I've learned over the years, back in the day, I was like, yeah, just launch a game, but now it's oh my god, I know there's so much to that
the gravity of it now.
There. Yeah, it's just a huge moment, and so I think 2026, probably the latter half, if anything, we'd see a broad public beta. But I could see things really heating up before then in terms of showcasing stuff and maybe revealing the team that they're working with, and having creators come out more about the tests and play tests and stuff. I could see that being a thing more, but a wide open public beta that then rolls into launch, 2026
so we're thinking Q3 Q4 26.
Yeah, that's my vibe.
And then maybe a release in 27 is what I'm getting at from your guess.
It's hard to say. Because I really don't know how long that beta period would last,
right,
and what their angle is on that.
Right, and that's why I like doing prediction guesses in beta, because that's decides everything about the release. We don't know if it's going to be a 6-month long beta. We don't know if it's going to be a 3-week long beta. We don't know if they're releasing it right after. We don't know if they're waiting a few months after the beta. So beta release date guesses, I think, are the most reasonable. 30, do you agree with Connor's sentiment here?
I mean, I like to think of the absolute minimum, which would be creators get access in 6 months, give them 3 months to do stuff with it, then they show it off in a blog. Maybe another 3 months go by to get everything ready for a more public beta. Maybe a year from now that beta happens. I mean, and then 3 months after that, launch could be the most accelerated timeline I could think of. With what has been shown publicly. I don't know. That seems like it would be the most likely based off of, the most likely accelerated path, the quick path.
I mean, I agreed with you in the last roundtable that, we had the prediction of summer 25, which I think is kind of thrown out the table right now, or thrown out the window, rather.
For release, no. And not even for beta now, because they're showing, again, the creators that's when they get access. So, yeah.
Hugo?
I would stand by what I just said as the most likely.
Do you agree with either one of these two takes? Do you have your own take? What's your thoughts on this?
I kind of agree with Connor almost fully, but I think the beta is going to be the release, if that makes sense. I think the beta is going to last maybe a year and a half more. I think they're not
Really?
gonna care. I think it's gonna be like Fortnite early access, which was like literally there for like 5 years or
Now,
something.
to be fair, I think they did early access so that they could push updates faster through, I think, the PlayStation Store or something like that. You didn't have to go through a lot of workarounds and getting
I
official like confirmation that
Would
that's
you
available.
complain though? Like if you
No,
had
no, not at
like,
all.
that like it lasted a year and a half long, but like it was a bit limited, maybe like as compared to like
Oh,
what they've advertised.
okay, yeah. If we're talking about like in the beta is these vertical slices, do you agree with that take, Hugo, or do you think the beta is just going to be the game in a testing phase?
I think
that's
the
very
beta is
important.
gonna be the game, man, and I think it's gonna release on 2026, but probably like late 2026, like almost reaching 2025, 2027. Sorry, but yeah, I just don't see a world where they miss this big opportunity of like a big public release not being wonderful enough and have enough content. Because imagine if it's like quite limited, people would be like, oh, we waited like 7, 8 years for this. They're gonna be really disappointed, and I think they do not want to miss that big public release.
Yeah, I think the only issue I see with doing like a prologue or having a limited form of the game, especially in adventure mode, is adventure mode is something that you want to be able to just play infinitely. And I know they mentioned that you can just ignore the story and maybe once you finish the prologue, you just kind of build. I'm I think that's the thing that's most difficult for me to make my guess is are they gonna because the mini games I think we're just gonna get the mini games straight up. Maybe they're gonna add more mini games with release, but I think the capital and the multiplayer stuff that's gonna be fairly built out with the beta. I just don't know where their adventure mode and where their story mode is gonna be if they even do a story mode. But I think we're gonna see more of the full game than just like a limited, like, hey, you can play the prologue in zone 1 or something like that. I don't think that's gonna happen.
Would you have a problem with, say, if like the beta had some kind of like tiered like roadmap of updates, and so like like beta comes out, you can go into adventure mode, you can survive, you can do things, but not everything's in the game yet, and so you kind of almost have like a roadmap of mini updates that will add bits of the story, so kind of like an early access game,
That's
like
fun,
standard
actually.
That's what Subnautica did, I
yeah, where
believe.
like you only have little bits of lore, and then like as updates come out, you replay, and there's new things and new content. Like, do you think they'll go that route, or do you think
I
they'll
don't
go
know,
more to
replay,
like
because
trying
you'd
to
have to what,
finish
like start a
everything
new
first?
world for that?
Well, you wouldn't. Maybe you would. Maybe you wouldn't. But like, I'm
Depending
thinking
on
of
the
like the
size of the
forest, for
update.
example. Like the forest, when that was in early access, like you just start up a new game, it would have like a new intro sequence because they updated it. They'd have like new character interactions and new models and things that you can unlock from earlier in the game.
I
That
think the
weren't in
only
it
I
if
think
you
the
hadn't
only
managed
issue with
to.
that is this is a like a infinitely generating world, and if you in the first day and generate like 10,000 blocks around you, and they're trying to add new story things, and that's like say a new biome or anything, like you're gonna have to start a new world, or else you're gonna have to travel 10,000 blocks in one direction, or I don't know how the story is gonna update just in general. I think it's a fun idea of like, hey, this update we're gonna do this or this, and maybe they might do that for certain things. I don't know if they're gonna do that for the adventure mode unless it's bug fixes. But
They could have it like, I don't know, like some sort of system, because they must have dealt with that problem obviously with Minecraft updates for years. And
right.
so like there must be something where they might think, is there a way to dynamically update a world, and add or like sprinkle these update, prefabs and stuff without disrupting player-made content. So
Yeah, because that I mean
It
that's
would
a
be pretty
ruin a lot of
difficult to
stuff.
do that.
Yeah.
that because that's a pretty big thing. I know a lot of people are like, when Hytale starts, because they didn't get the opportunity, I want my first world to be my final world. Then I'm just thinking, okay, but what if they add like 20 new
Zone 4.
biomes or zone 4, but you've already explored this much in your world. And especially like, okay, maybe 2-3 years down the line you can still manage it, but think about 8 years down the line, you're not going to use your first world. It's just way too big, way too old. Think about using an 8-year-old Minecraft world right now. No one's doing that. Not one person's doing
Yeah.
that. And if they
The only
are, it's just
way
annoying.
the only way I see this could work is if they give you the option to not do it or do it when an update comes out. Like, all these chunks, you've only run through these chunks, you haven't built anything. Can we override them? can we make a copy of your world and update it, you know? And kind of give you the option to update or not. That's the only way I could see it going well.
And we don't know what forms of like fast travel might be in adventure mode. It might be easier to go find new chunks than we think it could be, and you know, who knows? There could be like some more.
Yeah, they might have like a nature's compass or like different waystones.
Bringing it back though, how do you think that will impact beta? Like, do you think that would be a thing they did for beta, or do you think they'd just come with a straight, clean update of like, this is everything you can do, just go play it, and
I don't think they're
get
gonna.
back to you on launch?
I don't think they're gonna do weekly updates like that, or like monthly, however long it is, to be like, okay, the first week we're having zone 1, then the next one zone 2, or whatever the additions might be to it. If it is, it's going to be to the hub and capital, and that can be fun. Maybe every week is a different challenge, or like different, challenge is the best word I can think of, or like community events. Every week is a different event. But I think the adventure mode is going to be the solid thing, and I think it's going to be most of the game. Maybe they disable just the story in general, or maybe the story is so baked in that you can just start the story. Who knows? Regardless, I think because of the fact that I think that the game is going to be fairly built out by the beta, they're going to be silent for the first half of the year, I think. Just getting the engine up to pace, making sure the visuals, maybe the audio is getting there. And I think the second half of the year, 2025, they're going to start talking to us. They're going to start showing us. And then they're going to really ramp it up Q4 this year, and Q1 26 is going to be go time, I think.
Yeah, trailer time.
Yeah, we're going to get a trailer with the beta. There's no way they can.
At the start of 2026.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the trailer.
Oh, okay.
Because
no, I don't think.
Because
the start of 2026 is a bit optimistic, I think.
Not like January. I'm thinking like March, April maybe. And I think March is still Q1, so it'd be like Q1, Q2, like in that in between, we could see it, and they just market it. Maybe they even at the end of the year, they put a big trailer for Game Awards.
Yeah, or the Summer Game Fest as well.
I think Summer Game Fest is too early.
You know, I need a live orchestra at the Game Awards doing the
Hytale
trailer theme.
I think Game Awards makes the most sense. That gets the most views. It was the most viewed show of all time last year, I'm pretty sure. Bigger than the Super Bowl. And that's an audience you need. And Riot has the capability to make Jeff Keighley be like, ooh, that's a big trailer. We're going to get that for our show. And then at the end of the trailer, it says spring 2026. And then afterwards, they have an entire 3 months of just hardcore marketing.
Do you think
whoever is the cinematographer or the like artistic director for that trailer like needs to absolutely nail it, because it's gonna come across as either, oh my god, it's that game from 5 years ago that was like Minecraft 2, or it's like, oh my god, this looks like Minecraft. Like that, if it's going to be shown at the Game Awards, like you need to subvert that expectation real quick. So whatever the trailer is needs to look solid. Like,
it needs to have 2018 trailer vibes, but just way more explosive.
Yeah,
that's why I'm like, I don't think we can see a trailer at the end of this year, because if the milestones they haven't set right now, I don't think we can see. I mean, the game is going to be in an alpha state, right, at the end of the year, or that's like their plans. How are they going to make and record a trailer that's good enough,
right,
in a game that's in an alpha state? That's why I'm saying maybe like summer 2026, that's when they release the trailer.
When do trailers get shot for games usually? Is it not in a beta state usually?
I'm not.
There's no way they have the entire game done.
well,
then they shoot the trailer.
Because some of, you know, like vertical slices, as we've discussed, and like some have like certain areas of graphics just like worked on by hundreds of, or if not thousands of people, so they just get it done like a bit earlier than other teams.
I think it definitely would be staged if they do a trailer.
I genuinely think that Hugo's pretty spot on that if they do the trailer, they need to have everything in place and looking good, and that's going to take quite a while to get to that level that is not just the 2018 trailer, but like almost, if I'm trying to do the maths, like 6-7 years on from that,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of the game industry expectations and graphics and features and stuff. Like, there's so much more now that
Yeah, I think that's valid.
people are expecting.
The only thing I'm thinking of is the fact that, do you think that they would just drop the trailer somewhere? Or do you think they're going to use some big game expo or some announcement thing to push it in there and get the big eyes, get everyone talking about it, get all the reactions? I think it would be unwise to just drop it on the YouTube and be like, there it is.
I mean, that's what they did last time, and it got more views than the Fortnite trailer. So
They did have the countdown. I'd love a
Yeah,
countdown.
exactly. I was gonna say, I don't think they'd just drop it.
True.
They'd be like, oh, things are coming. Oh, the website is changing. Oh, suddenly there's a countdown, and I think everyone would be talking about it, even if it's not on a big public setting.
But if Riot really is banking on this, and has strong faith in it, I feel like it would align the release or the announcement of it with other things, like whether it's other activations or an event or something. I mean, it's Riot. Like, if they want people to know about this game, they're gonna get people to know about this game. And like, maybe even if they've left it down to Hypixel to just be like, okay, you guys can market it however you want, but you've got like this much budget for marketing or whatever, and maybe they're just like, okay, let's just do a countdown again like last time. It worked last time, so let's do it this time. Or maybe they're like, no, let's go to the Game Awards.
But the
Maybe
countdown
that's
didn't
an option.
really do anything. It was just the Hypixel people, and the first day it got like, yeah, maybe 100,000, and then people started sharing it word to mouth, be like,
Yeah,
have you
they
seen
might
this?
just do that again, but they have the option now to do whatever they want, right? With Riot, like they could go to the Game Awards if they wanted to. Like they might have that option, which is
Do
interesting.
you really not think, Myne, that if Hytale.com just goes black tomorrow, goes completely black, and then there's like a countdown for like a week, do you really not think that everyone would be talking about it?
I honestly, I really don't. I really don't think everyone would be talking about it, because it's just going to be people in maybe the Minecraft adjacent community, maybe some Terraria people, and us. I don't think it's going to cause that big of a hype. I think they need an explosion.
Interesting.
I don't think Hytale has, because they've gone silent. They've specifically put the attention away. No one even, let's be honest, most people don't remember what Hytale is. And if
It's
anything,
it's
they're
very
going to be like,
hard
oh,
to
it's that
recall-
Minecraft 2 clone that like never came out. I don't
It's
think
very
it's
hard to
more.
recall a blog post that had that reaction that felt like internet wide, like zeitgeist worthy, where it was like everyone in the main players were talking about it on YouTube and stuff like that. Like it's been a long time.
Like they could
And
tweet
so
out a
I
bunch
forgot what
of
that feels
mysterious things. They could do something to the website. I don't think Hytale has that poll right now. I don't.
I think that if they did something like sneaky, like I think a few Minecraft YouTubers would pick up on it. Like maybe maybe not necessarily someone like Captain Sparkles, but someone like your Exuma Void or Chippy Gaming. Or
But
something
even
like
then,
that.
I don't, that like I think you need internet wide eyes on this. And this is, like I said, it's going to be maybe in the Minecraft bubble.
But it wouldn't be the Fortnite black hole. That's for sure.
No.
Right? Like
No,
it wouldn't
never.
be
Never.
that thing. But it could if they built momentum right, which is again this whole thing around marketing and how they really want to appeal to this, because like the beta is technically part of the marketing. Like if they have an open beta and that's being recorded and people are showcasing it and live streaming it and everything, like all of that is going to build up the hype. And even before that, like the trailer and how they announced that and what they showcase. I mean, if it's very difficult. I like how all I'll say is if they pull this off, like it's gonna be a remarkable case study, like for how, like, because they've got so much to tackle with trying to pull this off right and announce it correctly.
Now, maybe they have some secret marketing secrets behind their website, behind their team that we don't know about.
It's the
But
Turbo Bowl.
personally, I don't think they have that pull, and I think they need Riot. That is one big thing. I mean, they're the publisher. Riot put so much money into it. Riot wants this game to succeed. They want their money back. They're going to want to push this thing out, and that's going to be the big explosion, is Riot. Because everyone sees what Riot does. Everyone saw that they're making a fighting game. Everyone knows that they're making an MMO, although they haven't really pushed that. But everyone knows they're making a fighting game. Everyone's going to know they're making a block game, or a Vox game, whatever we want to call it. Riot's got to be the person to push that out, I think.
Probably. Your logic makes sense.
What better way than the biggest show on Earth right now? That's
No,
my
yeah,
take.
I agree. It would be better for it to be on the Game Awards, for example. I agree. I just think something like this.
I do agree. I do agree with your
be
take,
big.
though. Well, I don't agree with that. I agree with your rebuttal to my take for the Game Awards is they're going to really need to speed up their process if they want to make a beautiful trailer by Game Awards time. That's going to be the difficult part. If my theory for Q1 or 2 spring 26 is going to pan out.
I mean, it could also happen. Like, it's a bit weird because they could just get a separate team, and if the graphics are on point, which they might be by mid 2025, the graphics might be on point already. They could get a separate team to work on the trailer. I kind of like stage stuff. They don't need the actual game to be ready.
I think I'll close out my thoughts by saying this is a take I've had before we even saw the engine. The engine is the big part. They have the engine now. Now they just need to fill in the blanks. They have all the blanks. They had the creative people. They had the designers. They were working the entire time. It's not like they were just sitting twiddling their thumbs while the designers made the engine. They were working on all the assets. They just need a factory line all of the blanks into the game. We saw
No,
we
but,
have.
like, I think the point they made as well is that the Blancs are done, right? Like they've done the Blancs part was getting it like up to standard with what the old engine was, and they've done that, and so now it's like just full speed ahead on development. Like they did, like I think their point was like now the engine is basically where they were, in gosh knows 2017, 2018, 2019, where it was like we can just throw assets into the game now and make really cool stuff. Like they've finally got over that infrastructure problem that they was so critical with the cross-platform stuff. So yeah, I don't know, I feel like they could, like, they really could for the next 6 months just start throwing in some really cool stuff into the game. And like I'm even thinking if we next get to see combat or mini games, it's not just going to be like what I saw, which was those bonk sticks, like those colored lightsaber things.
Yeah.
I think we're going to be seeing like spell casting with like actual assets and animations and proper swords and weapons and stuff. Like I'd really love to see that by some point this year. Like that'd be great.
Things can go really rapidly now that the engine is in a workable state.
Well, yeah,
And
that
keep in
was my
mind-
point the whole time, is that it would look almost parabolic. Like once all the, everything baseline is done, like filling in the content is so much faster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they don't even have to develop it from scratch. Like they're porting at this point. Like
Yeah.
they don't even have to work on it. They just have to make sure, like, for example, I remember this system for mob AIs that was literally just JSON files. If the system they made now works the same way, they can just literally just boop, copy paste. There we go. The Pharaoh AI is now in the game. It's that easy.
I think we've had a good takes here. I'm very confident in mine. I think everyone here is confident about theirs. It definitely opened my eye up to a lot of different possibilities. We have 4 viewer questions, or one of them we already answered. When will the next blog post be is one of them. I asked my Discord, hey, we're recording the roundtable and we got a few questions, so we'll kind of breeze through them. What do you guys think the next blog post will be?
I really want quarterly blog posts.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it's
Yeah.
time. Spring would be beautiful to get like just an update now that, again, like we just said, you can start throwing stuff in and flesh it out a bit more. They have like the groundwork for a faction. They could start building together a faction and giving us a preview of what one of those looks like and how, NPC behavior is starting to evolve and stuff like that. And then that gives them room for the summer update to talk about like bigger stuff. Because if we waited 6 months and they just gave us like a preview of a faction, I feel like we'd be at that same point of like, okay, like we're just going at that slower pace still. But I really want them to ramp it up. I don't know if they have the bandwidth, but that's like, yeah, I'm solid on that though. I really want them to go quarterly.
I agree. For lack of better phrasing, that's exactly what I want.
I would just be confused on why they couldn't. Like, what is their reasoning if they still do 2 blog posts a year? The reason before was that the engine wasn't in a showable state. That's not the case anymore. They've shown us
Yeah.
two full minutes of the new engine. What's stopping you
one
from
suggestion-
postcards? What's stopping you from, well, postcards maybe visually, but what's stopping you from just showcasing in general?
One suggestion I did have was that blog posts that are like, you could still have the 2 development updates, summer and winter, but then for spring and autumn you could have obviously we get the technical explainers still, but maybe these could be like feature explainers where they just focus down on something,
That's
launch pads
that's what
are
they
a bit
used to
more
do.
technical, but
They
yeah,
used
like
to
an
do the
outline
world
of
gen. They
something.
used to do Hytale model maker, block tech, character customizations, things like that. Bring that back. Show us where's
And then
customization.
the heat then isn't on that blog post to be talking about the development timeline constantly, and they don't have to bother with that. They can just focus on showing us a really cool fleshed out feature that they've been working on, and then they can wait till summer to talk about the really big, like, hey, here's the update, here's how mini games and yeah, things are going, combat and stuff, and the creative tools, and here's how getting the creative team in is going. And then they can do the same thing for the second half of the year, where it's like autumn, they come in, they show some just cool stuff that's going on, like maybe a mini game or a combat like playtest showcase or something. And then it's like winter, they can talk about like the heat's on then to actually talk about like, okay, beta or like whatever. So yeah.
Communication in general, postcards, Ask Hytale, which they started and then they realized they maybe we're not going to do Ask Hytale anymore. A lot of possibilities for open communication. Someone asked, do you think 2025 will be the best communication we've gotten in a while? I think that last word is important. In a while, yeah.
Yeah.
Last 2
Very
years have
guaranteed.
not been very exciting. We can't ever beat 2018, 2019, I think, unless we are very close to a release, and then they're going to give us a lot of information. But in a while, that's definitely doable. Now that they have the engine, now that they're showing us things. Yes.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
don't
I
think
think-
we're seeing weekly anymore. Like, they're just gonna release the game. Like at that point.
Yeah.
Like why?
Yeah, I think it's guaranteed because I think John Hendricks on Twitter did answer a question about this. Someone from the Spanish-speaking community did ask him, like, are we going to see more blog posts? And I think he said that they are going to try to put out another blog post before summer. So I think it's basically
I didn't even see
guaranteed
that one.
we're going to get more.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, I forgot about that. That was like the root of why I wanted quarterly. I was like, that would be so cool if that was a spring update, right?
That would make sense.
Of
Hopefully
course, it
they
was
stick
like
to
a
it.
John confirmation. It wasn't
Yeah,
like a
John
confirmation.
confirmations are not official Hytale confirmations, unfortunately. But
But I'm hopeful.
that's something to look forward to. And then I got a bit of a brain teaser because I don't know the answer to this. Someone said, what do you expect? Who do you expect takes ownership of the mods, Hypixel or the user that created it?
Interesting.
Talking
feel
about
like-
ownership and rights here.
My gut is telling me that it would be the property of. There'd probably
What's
be
the
some kind of
standard?
license. I think if there's nothing explicitly stated, it is owned by the individual.
I-
As far as
I
I'm
believe
aware.
in the marketplace, because we created like a TV style.
Okay,
like,
yeah, you'd have a
series.
better perspective on this.
That we had like a brand, and that was like kind of our own IP. So we like retained the rights to our IP, but like anything made in Minecraft was technically owned by Minecraft, I believe, on Microsoft or whatever the case was. I don't believe there was any ownership other than just like, I guess, rights to the IP. Like my Microsoft couldn't then go off and make clones of your map and your IP.
Because it's like,
That makes sense.
at least in the creator space, it's common practice. Like if I were to code somebody like a Spigot plugin, like they own it, even if I'm the one that made it because I got paid. So maybe if you're getting paid through your creation through Hytale, perhaps they, like, you're getting compensated, but they own it because you use their tools to make it. So I think it depends on them, is what I'm saying, I guess.
I
Like
do
whatever
think
they
that they will
decide to
be
do.
being like a team that came from another game and being like made of veteran gamers that like were built from like they modded games and made their own games into mods and all the other stuff. Like I feel like they will be pro if you have like your own thing.
They'd probably
like,
grant you
detachable.
the rights.
Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that. Like they wouldn't, or at least they wouldn't come after you unless, like Riot had some influence or whatever the case was. But I doubt that. Well, we'll see.
So I have two questions. They're a bit separate. What if you create your own game mode in Hytale? Let's say the way that Dota or League of Legends was made in a different engine. If you create your own game and then you want to move that out of it, that is your IP, I guess. If you create like Bed Wars, is that a Hypixel thing? Or is that your thing?
I mean, there's Bed Wars in Fortnite, right? But like, can Hypixel own Bed Wars even if they did make it because they are a Minecraft server? So like, I think they've come across problems with ownership on the Minecraft server side, Hypixel. So like, do they even own the rights to their own games, like in their assets? Can they go after people for like, for example, making like a knockoff Bed Wars plugin? I don't think so.
I don't.
No,
Yeah,
I don't think they can.
I don't think so either.
I think that's up to Mojang anyway. So like, will Hytale allow more ownership of the things made within it? I don't know. I'd like to think so.
And then
But,
alternatively, this is gonna be a skibbity toilet question. If you create a character with the Hytale model maker, and it is a very popular IP, and you make, for example, Skibbity Toilet in Hytale. It sounds very silly the way I'm describing it, but Skibbity Toilet was so popular and it used a Valve asset. I see Skibbity Toilet in Walmart. Does will Hytale own the model, and you have to make a legally distinct version outside of the game to be able to sell that as your IP? Or how does that going to work? Do we think?
It's largely based on image, right? So,
yeah, if it impacts the brand's image negatively.
Yeah, like you wouldn't be able to go off and do a Kweebec, right? But like if you made a custom character, like kind of like a custom skin in Minecraft, like that is yours, like that is your image, right? And as much as it was made in Minecraft, like Minecraft doesn't have the rights to every combination of skin
colors.
I mean, they do. They have the rights to like the actual
model
skin, like what's allocated to each player on their account, but they don't own the concept of what the skin is, much like they wouldn't own it if like you made Kermit the Frog or like another iconic character that they don't then own that character,
right?
And so I think it's a similar thing. Like you retain the rights to your image and the IP, which is like the essence of it, as long as that isn't plagiarizing other things, so like you could make your own story in theory in Hytale, like your adventure world in Hytale, and then adapt that into like a novel. As long as you change all of the aspects that are Hytale related, I'm sure you'd be able to get away.
Yeah,
with
like you want,
story.
like if you use Kweebecs in your Hytale story, you can't use Kweebecs in your novel. You'll just have to use a legally distinct separate entity, right?
Yeah, kind of like that. And I don't think they'll be aggressive with it unless people are abusing that, like to go off and use Hytale's image in bad ways
for political or religious reasons. That was a good discussion. We have a lot to look forward to in 2025. I think the future is bright for Hytale. Some brighter than others based on predictions, but we're going to hope that the more optimistic predictions are correct, even though some of them may be a bit unrealistic. Let's hope for that unrealism because we all want the game as soon as possible. This is awesome. I love talking with you guys in a Hytale roundtable setting. I think it's something that has been neglected for a few years, and there was a lot of positive resonance on the last roundtable. Hopefully it's going to be the same for this one. I don't want to oversaturate it. We're not going to do weekly hour-long discussions of Hytale.
Let's go. When's the next one, Myne?
That's for Chris and I to do with the Hytale podcast.
Right.
But maybe a biannual thing. Does that mean?
Thank miss.
As long as
every
there's something to
6
talk
months?
about, right?
If there's a substantial Yeah, I mean, look, if in the spring John comes out with a big banger, we might have to do a roundtable in the spring. If in the summer blog post and in this spring blog post there's nothing to talk about it, I won't waste people's time sitting down for close to 2 hours. But hopefully there is something in the summer to talk about that can bring us all together. Does anyone here have something they want to say? Everyone's socials will be linked down in the description if you enjoyed some of the people on the show. Connor, anything you want to say to close it off?
I'm a Kweebec guy, make Kweebec content on a Kweebec channel.
Bruh.
30, anything you want to say?
I just like having the ability to talk about these things as they're happening, kind of give my advice almost. I feel like the devs watch these, so sometimes it's almost like my chance to go, hey, here's something I really like from other games. Here's your chance to make it before you go too far the wrong direction. Like, it's kind of cool.
I do think there were a lot of key points in this discussion that they might not have thought about, or at least can open their minds up to, hey, maybe we can do that. So I think that's super productive.
I think it'd be too big an ask, but it would be cool to be like, to see whose ideas made it into the game someday. Be like, hey, like, we remember this stream from like 6 years ago. Like, to be talking in like 2030, like, yeah, during midway through release, we heard this stream idea and was like, this is perfect. And now that feature is like the most popular.
Yeah, give me some royalties.
No, but just in that. Yeah, like the Skyblock boss fights, like, ported over.
Hugo, any final closing words?
No, just it was nice talking about Hytale with you guys, and thanks for watching to the viewers.
Can we get Kweebec Gordon to sign us off?
Thank you for watching Hytale Roundtable. We appreciate you and your face, and for listening, your ears.
Let's go. Thank you, Kweebec Gordon.